I used to think gossip was just background noise, a hum you could ignore if you kept your head down and worked hard. But in an office like ours, gossip was oxygen. It fed the quiet hours, the coffee breaks, the little alliances that formed around microwaves and printer jams. And the one holding the match was always the same person, Harper Vale. Harper wasn't cruel in obvious ways. She smiled too much for that. Her words always came wrapped in empathy. "I'm only saying this because I care," or "Don't tell anyone I told you this." But by the time her whispers reached their third retelling, they were poison. When I joined Crestline Marketing, I was naive enough to believe the warnings about her were exaggerated. Harper sat beside me my first day, offered me gum, and said, "You're going to fit right in." By week 2, everyone knew I dated my old boss. Except I hadn't. It took me 3 months to realize Harper didn't just spread rumors, she sculpted them. She studied people, sensed their insecurities, and twisted half-truths until they sounded believable. And she always stayed clean. Her catchphrase was infamous around the office. "Someone told me." That was her shield. Someone told her. Someone said. Someone mentioned. She was just the messenger. At first, I ignored it. When coworkers started avoiding me or giving me looks during meetings, I focused on work. I wasn't there to make friends. I was there to build my portfolio, get promoted, and move up. But Harper didn't like people who didn't play along. The more distant I became, the more she prodded. Comments about my clothes, my lunch, my quietness. Then, one morning, I overheard her whispering near the coffee machine. "Yeah, she's looking for another job," Harper was saying. "She told me she's done here. Honestly, I can't blame her. Poor thing's so stressed." I froze. I hadn't told anyone anything. That rumor spread faster than wildfire. People stopped looping me into projects. My supervisor, Martin, started asking vague questions about my plans for the future. Within days, HR emailed me asking if I wanted to schedule an exit interview ahead of time. That's when I realized it wasn't just personal, it was tactical. Harper wanted me gone, and I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. I started studying her the same way she'd studied everyone else. Harper had a pattern. She fed on information, but never created it herself. She needed bait, something that looked real enough to chew on. So I decided to give her a meal she couldn't resist. It started with a conversation in the break room. She slid beside me, her perfume sharp and sugary. "Rough morning?" I forced a small smile. "You could say that. Been thinking a lot about my next move." Her eyes lit up. "Next move?" I lowered my voice like I was confessing a secret. "Don't say anything yet, but I've been talking to another firm. Downtown. They made an offer." Her hand brushed my arm. "Oh my God, Lydia, that's amazing. You deserve it." I shrugged, pretending to hesitate. "It's not final. HR doesn't know yet." That was the spark she needed. I could almost see the calculation flickering behind her expression. "Of course," she said sweetly. "Mum's the word." By the next morning, the rumor had evolved. HR called me in just to clarify whether I was resigning, because word around the office suggested I'd accepted another position. Proof. Clean, irrefutable proof. When I walked back to my desk, Harper gave me a knowing smile. "Everything okay?" "Perfect," I said, smiling back. I spent that evening building a plan, something better than just proving her guilt. I wanted to make her feel what it was like to lose control of her own story. Over the next 2 weeks, I played the part. I made small comments that only Harper could overhear, about an upcoming meeting downtown, a mystery project, even a client dinner. I made sure they sounded half-formed, like things I was trying not to say. Each time, Harper's curiosity sharpened. She'd appear behind me more often, asking casual questions, dropping compliments that felt too precise. Then I baited the hook deeper. One Thursday afternoon, as she and I worked late on a campaign proposal, I leaned back in my chair and sighed dramatically. "If this deal comes through," I said, half to myself, "I'll finally be free of this place." She looked up immediately. "Deal?" I smiled tiredly. "Just ignore me. It's complicated." She didn't. She never did. By Monday, the whispers had shifted. Apparently, I wasn't just leaving, I was joining a competitor firm that had offered me a leadership position. Someone said I'd already cleared my desk. Another claimed they'd seen me lunching with one of Crestline's major clients. I didn't even have to nudge. The story had grown legs of its own. The irony? My work performance had never been better. I stayed late, nailed every presentation, and acted like the rumors didn't exist. That made people more curious, and Harper, she couldn't resist adding fuel. It was perfect. I waited until the quarterly board meeting to spring the trap. Crestline had strict confidentiality rules about client relationships. Spreading false information about client movement could lead to disciplinary action, even termination. I knew this, Harper knew this, but she couldn't help herself. That morning, before the meeting, I sent an anonymous email to HR from a burner account. It contained a screenshot, Harper's private Slack message to another coworker. Lydia's leaving for Vantage Media. She's already talking to 2 of their clients. Don't say I said anything. The screenshot was real. She'd sent that message just 2 days earlier. I knew because I'd installed a mirrored notification extension on the shared computer, one Harper always used to chat during work hours. When the meeting began, HR interrupted halfway through. Before we continue, there's a matter of professional conduct that needs addressing. Harper looked mildly curious, glancing around. I sat still, watching. The HR director's tone was calm but sharp. It's come to our attention that a serious breach of confidentiality occurred regarding proprietary client information. Harper blinked. Oh. Specifically, the director said, rumors suggesting that one of our employees, Miss Lydia Hart, is transferring to a competitor and bringing clients with her. A long silence followed. Martin frowned. That's ridiculous. It is, the HR director agreed, but it's also a rumor that began on company channels. We've identified the source. Harper's smile faltered. I don't know what. The director read from a printout. Lydia's leaving for Vantage Media. She's already talking to 2 of their clients. Do you recognize that message, Miss Vale? Her voice cracked. That wasn't, someone told me that. The room went dead silent. Someone told me. The phrase that had protected her for years now hung in the air like a noose. HR continued. Regardless of who told you, repeating unverified claims about client activity violates Section 12B of your contract. Effective immediately, we'll be suspending your access pending investigation. Harper turned to me then, eyes wide with disbelief, like she couldn't compute that this time her own trick had turned on her. I looked at her calmly and said, "Someone told you, huh?" Her face went pale. The rest of the meeting blurred. Paperwork, whispered apologies, the shuffle of chairs. By the end of the day, Harper's desk was empty. Her mug, her plants, her pastel pens, gone. For the first time in months, the office was quiet. People looked at me differently, not with pity, but with something like respect. Even Martin stopped by my desk that week. "Glad to have you sticking around, Hart," he said. I smiled. Wouldn't dream of leaving. But inside, I felt something more complicated than victory. Because revenge, I learned, doesn't end with satisfaction. It ends with silence. The absence of noise can be deafening when you've been living under whispers. Still, I wasn't sorry. Harper had played puppeteer long enough. A few months later, I ran into her. It was at a networking event downtown. Sleek venue, dim lighting, champagne. I almost didn't recognize her at first. Her hair was shorter, her posture smaller. She approached me slowly, holding a glass of wine. "Lydia," she said softly, "you look good." "So do you," I lied. There was a pause. She shifted awkwardly. "I deserved it," she admitted. "What happened?" I tilted my head. "Did you?" She smiled faintly. "You think I don't know how it felt, what I did to people? I thought it made me powerful, being the one everyone talked to." I didn't respond. "I guess you showed me," she said finally. "Nice work." Then she walked away, disappearing into the crowd like smoke. That night, I sat by my apartment window, watching the city lights blink like restless thoughts. For years, I'd wanted to belong, to be seen, respected, understood, and somehow it took becoming the quiet villain in someone else's story to earn it. But I wasn't a villain, not really. I just stopped letting someone else narrate my life. The next morning, I deleted the mirrored Slack extension, burned the printouts, moved on. Still, sometimes when I hear someone in the office start a sentence with, "Someone told me," I feel a chill crawl up my spine. And then I smile, just a little. Because if there's one thing Harper taught me, it's that every rumor carries the seed of its own destruction. You just have to know when to let it bloom.
You've just stepped into her revenge side, where every wound finds its justice, and every silence ends with truth. If her story struck a chord, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive. Another secret waits in the next video. See how her revenge begins.